Hello there, I'm Jim Zirin. Welcome to Conversations in the Digital Age. With us is an old friend on the program. And when I say friend, no pun is intended. She is Emily Gould. Emily Gould has written a blockbuster of a first novel, which has the title Friendship. And it is about the relationship of two women who are 30 years old at the crossroads of their lives. Emily, welcome back, and we're delighted to have you with us.
Thanks so much. It's great to see you again.
Now, Emily, congratulations on the book. And perhaps you can tell us how you came to write it. Is it autobiographical?
No, actually. It's really shocking how little of the book is true or grounded in my own life. I definitely used locations that I was familiar with, restaurants and people's houses where I'd spent time, but the characters are all made up. They have some things biographically in common with me. I did want to paint a portrait of a friendship. So I have a best friend. The friendship in the book is a lot like our friendship, but none of what happens actually happened, which is, it's confusing sometimes. You know, sometimes real life catches up to fiction in ways that are a little bit uncanny, but I'm pretty sure the book is just totally made up and a novel and not autobiographical so far.
Now, over the past decade, you've had kind of a checkered history in letters. It has been said that you are where the internet, pop culture, and literature come together. Is that a fair statement?
It's just me. I'm sitting here in the middle of the Venn diagram. Yeah, no, that's crazy. But I think it is fair to say that I have my my finger in a lot of different pies, and I would never be content just choosing one thing, you know, one career or one path, and only doing that. I like to be doing a lot of different things at once.
So you really started as an editor, and you've been a blogger, a rather famous blogger actually. You've been a memoirist, you've been a publisher, and now you've written a novel. So perhaps you could take us through this transition.
Oh my God, where to start? Well, I started out in book publishing, working at a publishing house, and in a way that's sort of where I've ended up, because now I have my own small publishing project. It's sort of a cross between a publisher and a book club, and we send subscribers a book once a month, and they tend to be transgressive, feminist, books that have been overlooked. Sometimes we bring things back from being out of print, like New York Review Books classics, except for more weird and feminist. And coming up in the next year, we're collaborating with Coffee House Press, which is an established independent press, to actually publish print books for the first time and original books for the first time. So that's really exciting for us. In a way, we didn't know that that was where things were headed the whole time, but when we started doing this 3 years ago, we just sort of thought, oh, some of our favorite books aren't as available as they should be. What's a way to get them more attention and get them to the audience that's gonna, you know, connecting the audience that's there online with the books that they should be reading? It's something publishers are really struggling to do right now.
So right now it's just ebooks, is that right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, quite understandably, not everyone loves reading ebooks. I mean, honestly, if you give me the choice between a print book and an ebook,
except on a long plane ride.
It depends on how heavy the book is or how embarrassing the book is. Like, I definitely, there are books that I've read that I'm not thrilled to be reading on the subway, you know. Yeah, I don't think ebooks are the future at all. I think e and print will continue to coexist, and as they should. So the goal is just to make the books that we love available in every format that people want to read in.
Now, your publishing venture is called Emily, is that right?
Emily Books.
Emily Books.
The URL was available, and I just said, I got to go for it. You know, my name has good sort of resonances.
The URL, what, I'm a Luddite. What's the URL?
It's just the, you know, the web address.
The web address?
Yes.
Okay.
and some of them are not available. So,
but what you
compete to get the
present
ones.
the viewer with, or the subscriber with, is really a reading list, and then they choose among the books that you're offering. Is that right?
Well, if they can choose, everything's available a la carte, or they can choose to subscribe and just trust me, and they get a book every month. They don't know what it's going to be, but they believe that I have good taste and the book's going to be good. And so far so good with that. We actually have I'm surprised anyone subscribes because the subscription's kind of expensive. It's about $150, but that's just how much a book a month costs, basically. So yeah.
$150 gives me 12 books a year.
Indeed.
Question is, how much do you trust your viewers? You give them a reading list. What's to prevent them from just going on Amazon and buying the ebook on Amazon?
Well, a lot of them do, and when you look at Amazon, you see what people who've bought this book have bought. A lot of them have bought, all books that we've recommended. But I think our goal of building this backlist and then going into establishing what our sort of brand is, and then publishing our own original books, people will only be able to get them from us and also through all the other traditional distribution channels, but people will be able to buy them directly from us, and that, our margins will be considerably higher.
Let's hope so.
Yes, I really hope so, because I think that's the only path forward.
Well, I think by far and large, people will be fair, and if you recommend the book, they'll buy it from you.
Yeah, but I don't want it to. It's not a nonprofit, and I want it to be a real self-sustaining business. And I think what people are buying is the curation and also the sense that they're part of a literary community, which might not be available. I mean, not everyone lives in New York, where there are all these amazing independent bookstores. Some people live, in the middle of the country, and that's actually a lot of our subscribers. We have a lot of international subscribers, people who are craving what you get when you walk into Word or when you walk into McNally Jackson, someone knowledgeable who can say, oh, you're going to like this one.
So there it is. Well, let's talk about friendship. Friendship is your book has won considerable critical acclaim. It got a rave review in the New York Times Book Review. Katie Arnold Ratliff, one of their reviewers, says that the book is a novel that could not exist without the internet. What do you suppose she meant about that? Is the internet kind of a theme throughout your book?
It's really present in the characters' lives, and I felt that was true to just the age that the characters are. The way that they communicate is very intimate, and that intimacy is mediated by the internet. And that there's a passage in the book that says that these best friends, if they can't text message each other, if the person doesn't respond to your text messages right away, you assume that she's either sleeping or in a movie or in the subway or dead. And so it's like that kind of constant availability and connectivity is really, I didn't think of it consciously as a theme of the book, but I wanted to write something that was true to sort of contemporary experience. It's not autobiographical, but it's also not set in outer space or anything. It's not super far removed from what my life and my friends' lives are actually like.
Well, you have two characters in the book, two central characters, both women. One is Amy, who is supposed to be you, according to the critics, but
that's not quite fair.
Amy works in the internet space. You worked in the internet space. Amy leaves her job. You left your job at Gawker. She has many of the, at least superficially, many of the characteristics of Emily Gould.
Yeah.
And then you have this partner and close friend, Ruth Curry. Mm-hmm. And Ruth Curry is supposed to be Bev, shopaholic, spends beyond her means.
No, that's Amy.
Amy's the shopaholic.
Yeah.
Well, but she spends beyond her means, and she has credit card debt and student debt.
Amy has the credit card debt. Bev has student loan debt because she went to a year of an MFA program and then dropped out. So all she has is debt. She doesn't even have the credential, which is kind of a questionable credential anyway, in terms of actually being able to make money teaching writing.
So is that true of Ruth Curry, or these?
Yes.
Yes.
But in terms of, if I was trying to do a portrait of myself or of Ruth, I'm not a good enough writer to capture Ruth in all of her complexity. The characters are definitely actual characters. Like, I have a lot more in common emotionally, I think, with Bev than I do with Amy. And I definitely used Amy as a way to sort of exercise or to sort of like self-critique in a way, because Amy's kind of a lot of my worst tendencies, just sort of, and I gave the character some of my worst tendencies, and I gave Bev some of my more, I think, redeeming qualities. But by the time, honestly, you know, I worked on this book for years and years, and I did many drafts, and by the time I was finished with it, I really felt like neither of them was me or Ruth or anyone I've ever met. They're Bev and Amy. Like, they exist to me in my mind. I'm like, what are they going to do next? I don't know. The continuing adventures of Bev and Amy.
One thing Bev did was she had an unwanted pregnancy, conceived on the first date, first and only date. Does that bear any resemblance to reality, or is this total fiction?
Thank God, no. No, that did not. I mean, I'm sure it's happened to somebody, but that did not happen to anyone I know.
Things seem to move very quickly in an Emily Gould book. But that, you know, raises the issue of sex. I mean, there's not much sex in the book.
There's a little sex.
And we all know that there's some sex, but not very much. And we all know that sex sells, and you wanted to sell the book. But it's interesting, you focus more on economic issues than on sort of sexual exploits of the characters.
Money's a really great lens for seeing a character. And it's also something that people aren't generally honest about. I think in some ways it can be easier to talk about sex than talk about money.
Has money become the new sex?
Yes, Jim. Money is the new sex. I don't know if money sells, though. I think sex might still be a little bit more commercially enticing than long, searching conversations about credit card debt.
Well, you said of your book, and I quote, I was obsessively thinking about it, meaning sex, every day that I was working on the book. I saw sex through the lens of money and marriage through the lens of money. What did you mean by that?
Well, I was really broke. And so
Broke? You got a big advance for The Heart Says Whatever.
It worked out to, you know, about $65,000 a year for a couple years after taxes and my agent's cut of it. And I wasn't really doing a lot of freelancing on top of that, and I was living by myself.
And you're a
Brooklyn.
shopaholic.
No, I'm not a shopaholic. I'm really, look at me. I'm not a shopaholic. I was, you know, I was a little irresponsible with money, for sure. I do enjoy spending money, unlike my Russian Soviet fiance, which is a major bone of contention in our relationship. But yeah, I don't think I really screwed up. I think I just sort of thought that my career would continue at the same level, and it didn't. And kind of no one's did, because it coincided with a global economic downturn and also huge changes in publishing and media. I mean, you know, one used to be able to get $1 a word at a lot of magazines that don't exist anymore. And now you'll do the same amount of work to write something for a website that will pay you $300. So that's, you know, it makes it a little more tricky to figure out how to be a working writer who isn't, you know, there are some writers who, they teach in MFA programs, they go to McDowell and Yaddo and stuff all the time, and I run a business, I have to be here for meetings, like, it's just not my path. I'm super jealous of them, obviously, but it's not my path.
Well, back to the internet, if this is the internet, your book ends with 2 emoticons, and I really had to do some research into this. The first one is : single quote, open parenthesis, which means laughing and crying. And the second one is angle bracket, sort of for less than, 3, which I think means a love heart, a heart. So why did you choose to end the book with 2 emoticons? I mean, is that the way, this is the first time in the course of the book that Bev and Amy communicate that way. But, is that the way you communicate with people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed true to the characters. Sometimes words can't convey what you need to be able to convey, and they couldn't be with each other in that moment. Sending someone a heart is sometimes the only possible response.
Now, have emoticons become a symbol of your generation? The 30-year-old successful, upward mobile career woman?
I'm 33,
33,
and I don't know if I'm upwardly mobile, but
30 when you started writing the book.
Yeah, sorry, I'm actually not 33. I'll be 33 in October. I'm borrowing it a little bit.
So it's closer than you think.
Yeah, I'm living in the future. I think I'm maybe a little old for this style of communication, but I'm really into it. I find it really fascinating. I also love emoji, which are it's the pictographic alphabet that people use. You probably see it on Twitter. You know, they have all of these different symbols, and you can sort of use them to make little, you know, puzzles, and it's just interesting. It just expands the vocabulary of what's possible in terms of short form textual communication.
How many tweets do you issue, if that's the word, or post each day?
I don't know, tons.
Tons.
It depends on what else I'm up to that day.
I mean, are these really introspective, well thought out tweets, or are they just banal things? I'm now brushing my teeth tweets.
It's a mix, but I try not to have anything that is just like a purposeless observation, or I also am using it as a way of communicating. I'm not just sort of up on a stage performing. I'm having a conversation at all times with, you know, anyone who wants to have a conversation with me, and that's what I love about it. You know, I feel like I'm really there, whereas some people they just sort of drop in every once in a while, and they, you know, drop their joke on you and then they run away, or they drop their I'm going to be appearing at this place on you and then they run away. And that's not really, in my mind, that's not what it's for. But people use it all kinds of different ways, and there are a lot of totally legitimate ways to use it, but I like to use it as a giant party that I'm at all times, I guess.
A giant party, maybe a movable feast.
Yeah. I don't know, and that's the positive aspect of it. Of course,
well,
there's
friendship
it is
is
addictive
a two-way street.
Yeah.
Conversation is usually a two-way street if you're listening to the other person. And so, but you go on Twitter and you tweet something, I mean, it's just sort of one way, isn't it?
Oh, no, because people respond.
They do respond.
Yeah.
You get as many responses as you have tweets?
Yeah, and I love it when you'll make I love puns and silly humor, and you'll make a little joke, and then someone will elaborate on your joke, and you'll go back and forth, and the joke gets better and better, or worse and worse. But you know, it's like I mean, it's like the most amazing distraction. I'm clearly really distractible, but you know, I do occasionally accomplish things somehow. I have no idea how.
Now, your book, they say you can't tell a book by its cover, but you really can. I mean, your book has pastel colors, pink and blue, and a black background. And that's kind of emblematic of a feminist novel, isn't it? Isn't it said that chick-lit books have pastel colors?
Are you colorblind? Because my book clearly has a navy cover and
navy. Well, that looks pretty black,
and
right?
neon turquoise and pink.
So you don't think that the book is presented in feminist colors?
Feminist? I think it's fairly, as covers go, gender neutral-ish. Well, you can. I don't know. I mean, it's perfect. I love the cover. It's perfect for the book. I didn't want to conceal that it was, you know, I'm not like E.D. Gould. I didn't want anyone to be mistaken about the fact that I'm a woman and I'm writing about women. But I did want it to be approachable, you know, for anyone of any gender to be able to pick it up and not feel like it's shutting them out. And also, you know, avoid all of the cliches of a woman walking through a field of wheat or legs or blah, 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 you know.
Do you sense you've had a male audience as well for the book?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's more women. It's definitely more women, but more women read in general, so who's to say? I mean, getting away from the idea that only men's books are serious novels is, you know, the great theme of a lot of conversations that the literary community has been having recently. So I think, you know, maybe my book is pushing that agenda forward a little tiny bit. I hope so. I mean, you know, men have read my book and enjoyed it. It's not overtly hostile to them.
Well, you have, two male characters in the book, one of whom disappears, leaves the country, and another one just seems to fade. And, then there's the first date guy who's really a
he's
rogue
a creep,
creep, and he, jerk, and he disappears.
Yeah.
So the women seem to survive and the men seem to die out.
Well, it's not a book about men, but I still think that men can enjoy a book that's not about men. I mean, I've certainly read a lot of books about men that didn't really have any female characters. I mean, a lot of female characters who weren't fully formed or faded out. Some of the great works of the English canon could be described in those terms. And
You mean Jane Austen?
No, like Hemingway or Updike or Philip Roth or, you know, Bellow, like books that have women who just aren't really anything except for a sort of spongy, amorphous collection of the protagonist's projected neuroses. But you know, and women grow up reading and sometimes really enjoying these books. I have certainly, but you know, maybe it's time to read a book that doesn't have where men don't take center stage. I don't know, and I did find it very tiresome to write about the men. In earlier drafts, I put more energy into those characters, and eventually I just stopped.
Even Bellow, I guess, wrote about an economic motif in relationships. Is that line where he says to his pregnant wife, $700 for a maternity dress. Who do you think you're giving birth to, Louis XIV? That could have been written by Emily Gould, or about Emily Gould.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Get there eventually.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm sort of wondering where I'm going to go from here in terms of. I mean, I feel like I've been writing about the same things my whole life, so I'm sure it will be the next iteration of wherever those themes go when you're a little bit older.
Do you think there's a glass ceiling for women novelists in this country? That I mean, Jennifer Weiner, a chick lit author, very successful, complains that she wasn't reviewed for years and years, even though she was writing bestseller after bestseller. And I guess she made the statement that if Jonathan Franzen had been Jane Franzen, that no one would have paid any attention to him. Do you think that's fair?
It's really tricky. There are a lot of different kinds of success in this field. There's critical success and commercial success, and when those two things converge, you know, it's really hard to be that person. For I think that does happen more for men than for women. Still, it happens. You know, it's more common that a Knausgaard or a Ben Lerner will be critically revered and also sell enormous numbers of copies of their book, and you know, there have been a few instances of literary novels by women really hitting it big and getting recognition and awards, like Jennifer Egan, Meg Wolitzer, Curtis Sittenfeld, just off the top of my head. But it is rarer, and I think in terms of what your job is as an author, the job can be very different. I think as a man you can be reclusive and not in contact with your audience and still sell a lot of copies of books because everyone's like, oh, reclusive genius. But, you know, if you're Meg Wolitzer or Jennifer Egan, you have to be out there kind of pressing the flesh and seeming nice and approachable and like safe and like probably a mom, you know.
Well, you have won critical acclaim for Friendship. I don't know whether you've had commercial success, but
I mean, it's, you know, I don't want to like
holding its own.
Yeah.
And what does the future hold for Emily Gould? Was it another novel?
I hope.
Another memoir? A better blog?
Well, I'm really working on the publishing project right now, and becoming more of a publisher and an editor. And I hope that a novel can be part of that plan. But yeah, I think I just have to get back on the horse and start writing about it again and see what happens.
Emily Gould, get back on the horse.
Okay.
We've run out of time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming by. This has
My
been
pleasure.
just marvelous. And thank you for coming by. Tune in next week for more conversations in the digital age. Please visit our website at www.digitalage.org. For Conversations in the Digital Age, I am Jim Zirin. All the best.